afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for more lessons in English skills. My name is Hadria Stewart, and today I'll be sharing a few tips on how to pass the City and Guilds English Skills exam. Here are our objectives for today. So at the end of today's session, candidates should be able to explain the various ways in which they can use context clues to decipher meanings of unfamiliar words, share some strategies for improving their vocabulary, and examine some sentences from City and Guilds source documents, and use context clues to determine the meanings of certain words. Now let's do a little recap before we look at the vocabulary activities. Now at stage 1, remember City and Guilds English skills and math skills are offered at 3 stages. Let's take a look at stage 1 of English skills. Now you are exposed to comprehension passages and related tasks. So you're asked to identify the author's purpose or identify organizational features. You're given a form to complete or to fill in the relevant information. You have to use images to extract meaning, so you have to examine the images closely and tell what you understand from those images. Then there is dictionary use, vocabulary, capitalization, spelling, and grammar. So vocabulary is very, very important, and that's why we're going to focus on vocab this afternoon. For your continuous writing task, you have 1 piece of writing to do. You can be asked to write a letter, a report, an instructional manual, or a leaflet. So let's take a look at what happens at stage 2. So you're given comprehension materials, you are exposed to 2 source documents, and you are given comprehension and related tasks. You are to identify various types of informative discourse. You're to talk about the use and function of images. So again, you have to pay very careful attention to the images and what purpose they serve. We are going to require your summarizing skills. You have to talk about organizational features, identify persuasive devices. Then you also get activities that focus on vocabulary expansion. Capitalization is also important, spelling, and grammar. For your continuous writing task, you can be asked to write a letter, an article, and this article can be a newspaper article or a magazine article, and your word limit is 200 to 300 words because this is stage 2. At stage 3, your word limit is 300 to 400 words. Now you get comprehension and related task. You talk about author's purpose, or you have to identify the author's purpose. Why did the author write this particular material? You look at bias, fact, and opinion. We're going to call on your summary writing skills. You have to talk about organizational features, extracting meaning from a wide range of text, a wide range of materials, varying types of materials. We talk about the function of images, and City and Guilds always uses images. Then there's focus on vocabulary. So at every level, at every stage, there is focus on vocabulary. So we talk about the meanings of words, we look at synonyms, we look at roots, and we look at affixes. Capitalization is also very important, spelling and grammar. For your continuous writing task, you can be asked to write a letter, a story, an article, whether a newspaper article or magazine article, multiple step instruction, or write a speech. And remember, your word limit is 300 to 400 words. All right, let's also look at the examination requirements. So for the reading and writing exam, we're going to focus on these 2 units. Candidates, for the reading unit, candidates should be able to use different strategies to develop vocabulary. Of course, you can use your dictionary, you can use a thesaurus, you can use context clues, look at root words, affixes, and suffixes. So you have to expand the vocab. Then you look at using reading strategies so that you can gain meaning from whatever it is that you are reading, and also read for meaning. All right, so at the end of your reading activity, you want to make sure that you understand what it is that you have read. If you don't have a full understanding after your first reading, then you have to reread and go a little slower the second time around. Under the writing unit, candidates should be able to correctly use grammar, punctuation, and spelling in writing. Use planning and organization in writing, and remember, you're given marks for planning well. All right? Write to communicate. When we speak, we are communicating. When we write, we are communicating. So you're going to pay attention to your sentences, your paragraphs, your letters, your memos, your reports, your essays, your speeches, and your articles. Make sure that you know how to write each of those well. All right, here's something for you to think about. Why are you so ready to discuss everything else and reticent to communicate openly about money? Now, if you were in an exam and you got this sentence, you'll be thinking, what does reticent mean? I'm not quite so sure. So let us look at how it is used, and let us look at all the words surrounding reticent. Why are you so ready to discuss everything else and so reticent to communicate openly about money? Are there any clues that can help me? All right, so I am ready to discuss everything else, right? And reticent to communicate openly about money. So there seems to be a contrast here. So I can look at so ready to discuss or ready to discuss. I understand what that means. So reticent must mean the opposite. It must mean that I am shy or unwilling to talk about money. So I am using the context clues, right? And in this case, we have opposites here. So we have so ready to discuss, and the opposite would be reticent, meaning I am shy, I am reluctant, I don't want to talk about this thing, all right? So we're using context clues here to decipher meaning, and that's very, very important. All right. So we're going to focus mainly today on context clues. Right? Learning how to use context clues to decipher meanings of words is a skill. Yes, it is a skill. And it's a skill that supports self-agency so that people can define unfamiliar words independently. The goal is for all of us to become independent learners, okay? So using context clues is a skill, and by the end of today's lesson, you should really master or fine-tune that skill. It is important to know that authors give hints, or you may say clues, in all kinds of ways to help readers figure out what words mean. So when the writer is putting pen to paper or typing, the writer is thinking, okay, just in case the reader doesn't understand this word, I'm going to give some help. So you have to look for those hints, look for those clues. Always read the surrounding passage in which unfamiliar words appear. This helps readers to infer a word's meaning and appreciate the entire passage where the word resides. So you're thinking, infer, what does that mean? It means that the thing may not be directly stated. You have to draw your own conclusion or make your own assumption based on the evidence that you have. So always read the surrounding passage in which unfamiliar words appear. And this helps you to infer, okay, to make a conclusion about the word's meaning based on how it is used. All right, so writers use varying strategies to help teach context clues. All right, so these are some things that you can focus on relating to context clues. So the first thing you can do is focus on word parts. Break down the different parts of a word. So you have the base word, or some people may say the stem or root word. Then we have the prefixes and we have the suffixes, right? So, and we use those to figure out what the word means. So we're looking at the base, we're looking at the prefix, which usually comes before the base word, and we can also look at the suffix, which comes after the base word. All right, so examination of word parts is one thing that you can do. Some words have a prefix only. So the example we have here is reread. All right, so the prefix is re. You have already read, so now you're going to reread, you're going to do it over. So you focus on re. If you know what re means, then it's easy for you to say what reread means. All right? Then some words have a suffix only, so you add the suffix, so we have read, and we add the suffix ing. Some words have both a prefix and a suffix. And the example here is pre-reading. So we have the pre being the prefix and the ing now being the suffix, and the root word is in the center. And we can have a combination. And in this case, we have unreadableness. So we have the prefix on, we have readableness. So the eblaness, two suffixes are actually added to that root. And we have some words that have neither prefix nor suffix, just the base word or the root word. So it's very, very important that you pay attention to the word parts. All right, let's look at the word discrimination. All right, so we have the prefix dis, right? It means not, opposite of, reverse, deprive of, apart, or away. All right, and then we have crimin. Verdict means verdict, judicial decision, or judgment, and shan means shan indicates that the word is a noun. So we know all of these things about the word discrimination just by examining the word parts. Another strategy that you can use is to help you with context clues is to look for definitions or explanations that the writer may give. Look for a definition or an explanation within that same sentence, all right? So we're looking at discrimination again. Discrimination or unfairly targeting one or more groups by those who perceive themselves to be superior can cause distress. So if I don't know what discrimination means, I can focus on the explanation that is given, right? Unfairly targeting one or more groups. And hence I arrive at my definition for discrimination, right? Which is unfair treatment. Vulnerable. Vulnerable people are sometimes in need of protection under certain laws so others cannot take advantage of them. All right? So who are vulnerable people? What does vulnerable mean? So these are people who need protection. So it sounds as though they are defenseless, right? They cannot take care of themselves very well, and so they need help. They need protection. They need laws to take care of them. All right? And if this doesn't happen, then of course, people will take advantage of them. Here are some additional examples. The manager wanted a weekly inspection, which is a methodical examination of all the equipment. If you are not sure what inspection means, then you look at the explanation. It is a methodical examination of all the equipment. So these are the kinds of clues that you need to look for in order to help you to arrive at the meaning of unfamiliar words. Diane was lethargic. She didn't have the energy to get out of bed. Lethargic may be a new word to you. What does that mean, right? Diane was lethargic. Okay, I don't know what that means. She didn't have the energy to get out of bed. Okay, so I'm getting an explanation here. So lethargic means lacking energy, all right? Next one says, the dates are listed in chronological order. They start at the beginning and end with the last event. Chronological order? Okay, what does that mean? The writer is helping you. So the writer says something that starts at the beginning and it takes you to a process all the way to the end. Number 4 says, the doctor's writing was utterly illegible. No one could read those scribbles. So it's not legible, we can't read it, no one could read it. All right? So it was not very clearly written. Another thing we can look for are synonyms, okay? So words next to the unknown words may be a clue that there is a synonym. So look again at description. So the writer says, description or bias can cause distress towards the targeted group. So if I was not sure what description meant, I'm given a synonym, so it means bias. Next one, when people know that they are vulnerable or defenseless, they tend to protect themselves to avoid harm. All right, so we're back at vulnerable. So vulnerable means defenseless. So the writer here is giving you a synonym. All right, so we can use what we know to decipher what we don't know. Here are some additional examples. She hums continuously. What does continuously mean? She does it all the time, and it annoys me. All right, so continuously and all the time mean the same. His animosity or hatred of his sister divided the family. So if I'm not sure what animosity means, I'm given another option. I know what hatred means, right? So I know animosity means hatred. Bobby felt remorse or shame for his harsh words. If remorse is a word that is new to me, then I know the word shame. So the writer here gives me a synonym for remorse, which is shame, and that helps me to remember the meaning of the word. So in order for me to remember what remorse means, all I have to do is to connect it with the word shame. Another thing you can do when you're looking for context clues is to look for examples, right? Providing examples, writers provide examples of unknown words, and this can give readers a clue to the meaning. Example, vulnerable people, such as young children, the elderly, or handicapped individuals might have protections under certain laws. Who are vulnerable people? Young children, the elderly, or handicapped individuals. So the writer is giving me some examples that I can relate to help me to understand what vulnerable means. Another thing that the writers we often use is contrasts or antonyms, right? Or you may simply just say opposites. So opposite information about the known word can be offset by words and phrases such as unlike, as opposed to, or different from. So once you see those keywords and phrases, you know you're getting opposite. Example, discrimination, as opposed to fairness for all people, can have damaging effects on a targeted group. So the opposite of discrimination there is fairness, all right? Then vulnerable people, unlike those who can stand up for themselves, tend to be the target of unethical or dangerous individuals. So the opposite of vulnerable people are those who can stand up for themselves. They don't need anybody to defend them, right? Here are some additional examples. Marty is gregarious, unlike his brother, who is quiet and shy. So one is gregarious and the other is quiet and shy. We have the contrast there. The next one, the painting of the landscape is picturesque, while the one of the old house is just plain ugly. All right, so we have the while there indicating the contrast. So picturesque must be something that is quite beautiful, quite attractive. Number 3, she was virtuous, unlike her evil and conniving brother. So if I don't know what virtuous means, I know what it is not, right? So unlike evil and conniving. All right, analogy, comparisons. So comparisons can be used. So comparisons of the words help to determine what the words mean. Example, the ill effects of discrimination are like hateful, wicked tendrils gripping the heart. So I know I can compare ill effects of discrimination to hateful, wicked tendrils gripping the heart. And that can help me to understand what discrimination does, how it affects people. All right? Next example, vulnerable people can be like fragile glass in need of care and attention. So vulnerable people, I can compare them to fragile glass. All right, and we can also look at a positive, and this means having two nouns or noun phrases that refer to the same person or thing. So look for the grammatical structure of appositives, which can provide a definition, a synonym, or example. And I'm going back to my use of the word discrimination. So in my example, discrimination, the act of showing bias to one group can have damaging effects. So I have given you additional information about the discrimination that can help you to decipher the meaning. So it's the act of showing bias, okay? Another example, the elderly and handicapped, a vulnerable group of individuals, have laws to protect them from unethical individuals. So I have a vulnerable group. Who makes up the vulnerable group? The elderly and the handicapped. So I can focus on the appositive as well. All right, now here's a little organizer that you can use when you do your vocabulary-related activities. So in the center there, you would put the word, right? And then top left, you have the context clues that you would have gotten from the passage. You can draw a symbol or a picture, right? That helps you to understand the meaning of the word, and you can give the definition and also some examples. So this is something that you can use when you're doing your vocabulary-related activities. How do I increase my vocab? All right, many times people say they don't know what to write, right? They don't have the words, they don't know the right words to say or use. When it comes to enhancing your vocabulary, there are several ways to learn new words so that you can begin to put them into use in your writing and in everyday conversation. So once you meet the words and you know what they mean, practice to use them as you speak and as you write on a day-to-day basis. It says no matter what your personality or your reasons for wanting to improve your vocabulary skills, you are sure to find that one or more of these methods will help you become a better wordsmith in no time. And I'm sure that wordsmith may be new to you. Best way is to read, read, read. Just like how we practice, practice, practice. So one of the best ways and the most enjoyable ways to increase your vocabulary is to read. And you can just start by reading things for pleasure, and then you move on to reading other related things. Once you enjoy reading, then it becomes easy. And the more you read is the more your vocabulary grows. All right? Then we spoke about this earlier. All right? Learn about root words. It says over half of English vocabulary is derived from either Latin or Greek. Yes. In fact, English owes more to Latin than to Greek when it comes to most words, except perhaps for political and mathematical terms. This means that if you broaden your understanding of these root languages, you can more easily figure out what new words mean. The real fun of learning more words is knowing where a word comes from, how it found its way into the English language, and what its roots are. All right? And then we have an example here. We have the word culpable and we have culprit, culpable and culprit, and these words share a similar root in culp. It says, have you ever heard the phrase mea culpa? Mea culpa, right? It simply means my fault in Latin. So that's mea culpa. It says both culpable and culprit derive from that single expression. A person who commits a mistake or is at fault, we call that person a culprit. The punishable offense is the culpable offense, and this is related to guilt and fault. All right? And you can get started by using a formal study, by doing a formal study of root words, and you can create your list of common root words, prefixes, suffixes, and memorize them. You can also challenge yourself to list the words that you know with a similar root to show how their meanings are related. All right? All right, let's go now. You can also, another strategy that you can use is to use word games, okay? So playing word games is another tactic for expanding your vocab. And young people love to play games, right? And now that many people are saying that they're bored, is a good time to play some games, right? So start with a quick game that requires no tools other than your friends and your brain. And those are readily available, right? So here's how. The first player starts the game by naming a particular word. Real word, no, not a nonsense word, right? Then the next player spells the word or gives its definition. They then choose the next word, which must begin with the final letter of the last word. So you have to pay attention. And the play passes to the next player and continues until someone is stumped, all right? And you go right along. And then you can, of course, score yourself. Another thing is that you can make and use flashcards. Very, very important. They work. It can also be helpful to learn new words in group centered on a particular theme. Just like how City and Guilds is using the thematic approach, and we're focusing on media and communications this year, go back to your word list. You can use a textbook to find useful vocabulary word lists, or you can look online for ready-made flashcards to practice new words or new words by category, right? Flashcards are a great way to study for a test or to just explore vocabulary for your personal enjoyment. And you can take them with you anywhere. Challenge yourself to learn a word each day. All right? There's a reason why word a day desktop calendars are so popular. Adding to your vocabulary in small bites is very manageable and more easily remembered. Right? You may find yourself looking forward to a new ritual or reading about an interesting word, its definition, and linguistic heritage. All right? And not only should you learn a new word every day, but you're to use those new words. And of course, practice, practice, practice. All right? Now, here are some examples from our source documents. All right? So communities are trained to understand the importance of welcoming and taking care of visitors in a hospitable manner. What does hospitable mean? Let's go again. Let's look at it. Communities are trained to understand the importance of welcoming and taking care of visitors in a hospitable manner. Okay, so here are my clues. If I'm going to be hospitable, then I'm going to be welcoming and I'm going to take care of my visitors. All right? For the next hour or so, the doors were clogged with belated groups of despondent students and staff looking around for vacant seats. There were very, very few. These people are despondent. Why? Belated means that they came late. They're looking around for vacant seats, and the seats were few, so these people seem quite sad. All right? So I'm looking around in my sentence to see all the clues that I can find. All right? This one says, the huge motorbike accident which nearly cost her life and her university dream is a powerful tale of resilience. So she has overcome the odds. So she had a huge motorbike accident, but she still pushed through to pursue her university dream. I focus on the word powerful. Okay, so I know that this person is very determined. So that is what resilient means. All right? You start off in the initial round just playing a warm-up mix. Start off. Okay, good. That's a clue to what initial means. All right? And remember, I'm taking you back to your 2020 City and Guilds word list. All right, so these are some words extracted from the word list. What I always encourage students to do, take the list at your stage, whether you're sitting stage 1, 2, or 3, go through the list and look at the words that you're not familiar with, and now is the perfect time for you to find out what those words mean, so that when you go in the exam, you already know what they mean and you're comfortable. When you see them, you're very, very comfortable. So that is going to help you to understand the text quite easily. All right? And these are some other related activities from exam paper related to vocab. All right? So we move from that. Remember, you have words with multiple meanings, right? It says most words have slightly varying meanings, or they can be used as different parts of speech. So pay attention to that. All right. Practice, practice, practice. Always realize that you can get better. Your best work has not yet been done. Practice, practice, practice. That's all the time we have for today.